Thank
California.
Don't worry.
And your skirt as well, you noticed?
Thank you.
Not a skirt, Ross. A skirt.
Just teasing, just teasing.
Speaking the type of skirt.
See the influence we've had on each other?
You see? Walking straight down the middle line.
Kilt.
Yeah, type of kilt.
Kilt with a K. So that much sense.
Who's mine's a Santa suit?
I'm just gay.
Right, welcome everyone, welcome Papakura Local Board, and welcome to the public that's here. We will open the meeting. Apologies, we have Member Honeck for absence and Councillor Hulse for lateness on council business. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any declarations of interest? Should be none. Confirmation of the minutes. We could have a mover, please. Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Cooper. All those in favour?
Aye.
Do I have to do that twice? No. Good. There are no petitions, but there is public input today from the Springs Speedway Residents Association, represented by Simon Dew and Nairi Harnett. So welcome, please come out, Hartnett, sorry. Please, welcome.
We got a nice one.
You have 5 minutes. Yeah. You have 5 minutes, and then there'll be questions after that. So.
Well, thank you for allowing us to appear today. I'm Simon Dew, and I represent the SSRA, the Springs Stadium Residents Association. For over 20 years, members of the Springs Speedway Residents Association have fought to make the Speedway at Western Springs comply with the law. We've never, as some people have attested, ever demanded the removal of Speedway, but have simply and consistently asked for it to comply with the law in exactly the same way as every other person and entity in the community is required to do. This has never happened. In 2005, Justice Peter Salmond, commissioned by Auckland City Council, wrote a BPO report, Best Practical Options report, detailing the minimum requirements for the continuation of Speedway at Western Springs. To this date, not one solitary recommendation of this report has been implemented despite the requirements of the RMA to recognise the BPO. Instead, the Council and Springs Promotion seem to frustrate the process by transforming the interim agreement, and I highlight the word interim, that was reached between the Springs Residents Association and the Springs Promotions and the Council in mediation the previous year in order to facilitate the completion of the Speedway season, while the BPO report was commissioned, into a permanent solution. So they just kept the interim agreement in place. At all times, the residents have acted in good faith, only to be treated pretty much as naive and unimportant. None of us, for instance, were contacted for an opinion over the implementation of the interim agreement into the unitary plan. Now that we hear our opposition to Western Springs Speedway has faded and that there is no opposition to the continuation of racing at the Speedway, this is patently not true. Our members have continued to complain and have emailed the entire council expressing our concerns. We did get 2 replies. If we have been a bit quieter over the last few months, it was simply that we heard that a solution had finally been reached and that Springs Speedway was moving to Collindale Park. Make no mistake, our outrage at the continuous flouting of the law at Western Springs is not diminished, and as the intensity of the occupation of the area continues to increase, it will be an even greater injustice to continue making industrial levels of noise in this entirely residential neighbourhood. Thank you. I'll joke to you, Nari.
Kia ora. I'm just really wanting to say that my whānau and I have lived on Old Mill Road and have been Greyland residents now for nearly 40 years. I actually threw out my folder when I heard that yes, Speedway was moving. So I've actually rather quickly had to go through and gather together what I could find. One of the things that I did find was a letter from Dick Hubbard when he was mayor, and in that he said that that officers prepare, it was basically dated the 15th of December 2006, and in it I quote, that offers, going forward, Council passed the following resolution, 26 October 2006, that officers prepare and lodge a resource consent application to vary the terms of the concept plan for Speedway events at Western Springs on the basis of the recommendations made in the Honourable Peter Salmon QC's report on Speedway at Western Springs Stadium. I just feel like there was a lot of work undertaken then. I would like to think that all the councillors that are having a vote on what's happening down at Speedway at least read that report, because that to me is the beginning and the end of it. So, and I also wanted to come and support Simon when I can hear it bandied about that there is now no opposition from the neighbours. That is not the case. We have remained quiet thinking, okay, it's going, and it never has. So that's why I'm here for. And I would hate to think that it was coming on under new plans, because there was a time that we had racing every weekend of summertime. So there was just not one opportunity that we could gather around the barbecue in the backyard like everybody else and actually enjoy a summer evening. We used to have like 3 days racing over the Christmas period. Everyone else is having a break and enjoying their holiday, and we couldn't get that. So I can just feel like this is an escalation and we're no further ahead. I've met many councillors over the years, so everyone's changed. I've had dealings with Banks. I've had dealings with Bruce Hucker. You know, I've just had spoken at length with lots of them, given lots of assurances. I see that nobody that I've spoken to is now here. So I just want to say, yes, we're opposed to it staying there. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Watson.
Thanks.
Oh, yes.
The guys.
Sorry, yeah.
Questions.
so-
It'll
so
be
Yeah,
thank you
sorry,
very much.
that's right.
Yeah, no, Springs Promotion Limited, the entity the council is doing business with, essentially,
Yeah.
the chief players in that, they put out this glossy brochure and gave it to all the councillors, and in it they said, and I'll quote, noise. The Auckland Council report that the sport of Speedway has been compliant for a number of years. These reports can be viewed online, and that was around about 2016. Then they have quoted a gentleman who I won't name, but who's the Principal Specialist Environmental Health at Auckland Council. I'm happy to meet you. For your information, under the new unitary plan rules, the events to date have been complying comfortably with an average of about 85 decibels. The new limit is 89 decibels. Is Springs Promotion telling the truth?
I don't believe they are. No, I think that's, well, one thing is that the 89 decibels was never an agreed limit. It was an interim agreement that allowed them to go to 90, while the BPO was formed from Justice Salmon. Justice Salmon doesn't mention anything about 89 decibels, so where that came from, I don't know.
So how have you found?
Also, I haven't found any sign of the Speedway being monitored over the last few years. It was supposed to be monitored and posted online.
Well,
it's not there now. You go and have a look and see if you can find it.
Okay. So how have you found your dealings with Springs Promotion then, in terms of any issues you've had?
Well, we've had hundreds of dealings with Springs Promotions over the years, and they've not been terribly easy to go. As you see, they can produce a large glossy report, and they usually have large glossy lawyers to go with it, and because they've got a large glossy budget, whereas we are just the residents of the neighbourhood, and consequently not. It's a David and Goliath battle.
Interesting.
How would
Councillor
we know?
Filipainen.
How would we know whether they comply with the noise levels? Who's monitoring that?
Well,
Where can we find it?
Well, they have said
I've never
councils
seen
monitor.
that brochure,
Yeah.
so I've never been able
Interestingly
to.
enough, they didn't provide it to us. That's a bit late for that now, isn't it?
I will get that.
I'm sure he'll
but
give you
never
a copy
seen
of the
it.
brochure. Councillor Filipainen.
Yeah, look, can just let me know, how many residents do you represent around Western Springs?
Our numbers have changed over the years. I'm not the person who does anything to do with that. I'm just a representative who's chosen because I have a bit of a mouth, but I'm not. You'd have to talk to John Watson or someone like that to to find out what our specific numbers are, but we are, I mean, I've been a resident for over 30 years, so I don't...
Yeah, we're not referring to Councillor Watson, but
No, different John
Checking.
different John Watson.
They
yeah.
say I've got a split personality.
Would
so
the real John Watson please stand
the devil's in the detail.
An undercover operative.
Okay, so look, and just a second question. Now, recently there was a decision made around this chamber that that the move of the Speedway to Collindale Park, that was deferred as a result of a stadia strategy that looks at all the stadia around Auckland. So that's the reason why they're currently at the moment there. So what were your thoughts when you heard that it had been deferred from going to Collindale Park would have solved your problems? What were your thoughts?
We
then?
were utterly gutted because
Yeah.
you know we were told that it was a done deal, and
Oh.
we saw it in the newspaper announced in the Herald that it was going and that cricket was coming in, and we like the sound of willow on leather a lot better than we like the sound of V8 engines racing on methanol.
Okay, so but you read it in the Herald, so it was reported.
It was, yes,
From the
yeah.
Herald.
It was a fait accompli as far as we were concerned.
Okay, thank you. You should have a look at the tape when that decision was made.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Good morning to you both. I met with Joe Cassiopoli of your organisation yesterday.
Sure.
And he outlined a long history of the problems you folk have had with getting enforcement. I guess I'm the new Bruce Hucker. I've taken over this role. I understand there was an enforcement order from Judge Peter Salmond stipulating conditions.
It was a BPO. What happened was we went to the Environment Court where we managed to stop the Speedway for the season. I think it was 2004. You can't quote me on the dates because it's all a long time in the past. We went into mediation. Their mediation agreed that we would allow them to have an interim period where they could continue racing for 12 races a year. But that the council would commission a BPO from a senior environmental jurist who was Justice Peter Salmond, and then that would be implemented into the the Resource Management Act and by way of the district plan. I think my language might be wrong, but it was going to become part of the law of Auckland. And what happened was we got the BPO. It was a fairly comprehensive document. It's still available online. You can read it from Scoop's website if you just Google Justice Salmond's Western Springs report. And it's basically laid out a whole lot of mitigating ways of making the Speedway tenable. And as I say, not a single solitary one of them has ever been adopted by anyone, and the interim agreement has been perverted into being a permanent solution.
So, in other words, what you were telling us is that the council has been unable or unwilling to enforce the rules. Is that the...
As far as we're concerned, yes. Yeah. The council has not... Well, I mean, we get told all sorts of things, but we continue to expect that the council will operate according to the Resource Management Act and implement the best practical options report.
Okay. Be assured, whatever happens to Speedway, whether it stays in Western Springs or whatever, I'll be looking to make sure that the council starts doing its job and enforcing those rules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Sure. Hi. So
Hi.
I'm a Walker, not a Watson.
Right.
Is your concern around noise generally, irrespective of whether it's Speedway?
Yeah, I think there's certain levels of noise that are acceptable and certain levels that aren't. There is one understands that it's an event centre, and that that occasionally there are functions there that make a lot of noise. We get a lot of noise from things like the food festival and Pacifica and things like that, but it's the every Saturday night of the Speedway, and it's the unremitting droning noise that drives us completely nuts, and the levels of it. It's way louder than anything else that goes on there.
So how does that compare with noises from concerts, especially rock concerts and the like, that
Well,
often
they barely
have
ever,
a
they barely
longer
ever have any.
duration.
They barely ever have any now. I mean, there's been, there was City Beats, I think, which was pretty loud, but it's a one-off thing. You know, we can cope with one-off things. It's the week in, week out, every Sunday. So you can't plan a party in my garden, you know, because it's going to be drowned out by 1,000 enraged mosquitoes.
So if there were a lot of concerts at Western Springs and making a loud noise, you'd be equally
Well, we
disturbed
would
about
expect that the council would apply the law, which they do apparently. I think if the concerts go 1 decibel over the limit, they get a massive fine. They pay a huge bond to have a concert at Western Springs, and they're managed very effectively. Whereas Speedway hasn't paid a fine ever, to my knowledge.
Wow.
Have they?
Maybe that's because they're within the sound limit. I'm not
No,
sure.
no, they're
Anyway,
not. I mean, they put as part of the interim agreement, they put a noise monitoring tower in there, which they imported from Sweden at some enormous sum of money, which was surprisingly damaged beyond repair within a week. And so the noise monitoring has never been reliably performed. Regularly it says, oh, it's too windy to take a measurement. And we know that the noise is wind dependent, and if you're downwind from it, you're going to cop it. Read the Justice Salmon report. He deals very effectively with all those arguments about the noise, and discusses the whole process of the concerts as well. He's a senior environmental jurist. So I would hate to try and impose my opinion over the top of his.
Councillor Darby.
Look, thank you, both Simon and Nairi. I want to get to the crux of this, because this is not about noise and it's not about the current unitary plan and the planning provisions. It's about a decision of the court and your community expectation that an activity, Speedway, would be vacating the Springs. And it's not
Or
about
complying with the law.
Yeah, and your correspondence from John Watson, the chair or the president of your association, is consistent with that. And I just want to get to the nub of it. You're here because you heard in recent weeks the suggestion here that the residents had not been in contact and were not strongly advocating. And I'm hearing that in some ways you were in abeyance because there was an expectation.
Yeah, we'd heard it in the paper. We
the
read it in the
council-
Herald.
The council would follow through. And is that the nub of it?
Yeah, we thought it was a done deal.
And that's what you would like the council to be consistent with?
Yeah, we were satisfied with the solution. I think it makes perfect sense to move Speedway to a genuine motor. I'm nothing against motorsport. I'm an avid motorcycle fan myself, but I just think that it should be complying with the law. And if you can take it out to Collindale Park, where it's right out by the airport, where you can make as much noise as you like and enjoy the sport all year round, why would you not do that?
Okay, I've got it. Thanks.
Councillor Hulse.
Thank you. Councillor Darby started my question because I am a little bit confused by some of the discussion. So I just want to clarify 2 points. Have you been in touch with the local board? Because it's my understanding, and in presentations that we've had from the local board, that they're quite clear that the residents are concerned about Speedway and have consistently raised your worries about the level of noise.
I can't speak for any members of the group. I personally haven't been in touch with the board for a long time. I mean, I did attend meetings with them in the beginning in the process, but no, I personally haven't. But it may well have been other members of our group have.
Sure.
Sorry, can I just say, I spoke to Penny Sefa-Weaver, this was years ago when she was a councillor, and when I actually wrote to her because it was just too much. It was just, I could see it was ramping up. And she said that she checked and there had been no complaints to council about it. Now, I don't know where the box that the complaints go to, but I couldn't believe that because I personally had been complaining on a fairly regular basis at after 10:30 on a Sunday night, after 11, you know, I think of late they're complying more with the sound, but I can't believe that anyone can say there have been no complaints about it.
We discovered, in fact, at the meeting at Pasadena School when we first started this whole process that we were making complaints to to the noise control, and they were instructed to tear them up at the end of the night, because if they were in to do with Western Springs, there was no point in keeping them. So
I think, Mr Chair, we've got a separate issue around our complaints, because I know statements were made at the meeting where the decision was made by half of us plus one to defer. For the other half of us, we were very happy for the whole process to proceed exactly as you had expected it to. But I do think we need to follow up, you know, the statements that were made that there had been no complaints and that the councillors had never seen a complaint. I think we do need to find out where they go to. And
I think we need to follow up on the lack of enforcement as well. That's shocking.
Thank you, Councillor Lee.
Yeah, but the point is, it is the local elected members who need to be doing that. I stopped the other night, there was a Speedway was on, and I stopped and drove up the hill and had a listen myself. So it certainly is quite
imposing.
Clear what the issues are. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Mr Chair, I just wanted to say, as the Chair of the Regulatory Committee, that I think rather than you know, our own council, you know, we need to actually find out, I'll get a memo around this in terms of what the monitoring has been.
Yep.
So we can get something in front of us to know what we need to do.
Well,
but I mean, as
just
Councillor,
move it.
well,
Forget
as
about the monitoring.
yeah.
Just move the thing out to Collindale Park.
What I was
let
just
them
saying,
go
and as
nuts.
Councillor Darby said, you know, really the issue is about moving it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Not
the issue is about
because,
moving
and
it.
would you actually say, I mean, we've known about this for years, it's been going on forever, and I don't for 1 minute believe you're a bunch of complainers about nothing.
Right.
Because, you know, you love living where you live, but you want to have a quality of life. Do you think there's ever a chance that having Speedway there could actually comply really, in reality, because of the nature of what it is?
Well, you know, I'm a mechanic by preference, a real estate agent in life, but and I know I can make an engine as quiet as I like. But it's about competitiveness. They, you know, if they race Rolls Royces around that track. In fact, you know, they claim they've been there since 905, but of course in 905 they were racing 500cc motorcycles around there. That wouldn't have made nearly the noise that the V8 turbocharged methanol burning monsters that they run around there now make. It's not the same vehicles, and it's not the same sport. So if they race Rolls Royce Silver Ghosts around there, I'm sure we'd all be completely happy. But they don't. They race mini cars and midgets and massively powerful things with minimal muffling, and love the noise. They love the noise. That's the whole thing. The thing is about the noise. You look at the adverts on the TV, it's about the noise. They love it. And they should love it at Collindale Park.
Cool, thank you.
Sorry, can I just sort of say that, you know, you're actually talking about motor racing in what is a natural amphitheatre sound shell. So I have been in Lloyd Avenue in Mount Albert, out on their deck having dinner and hearing this racket, and I went, oh, I wouldn't have thought you could hear the motorway from here. And they said, no, that's Speedway. So I just think that people have sort of got used to it. And I also feel that if it stays, there will be an uphill battle because they are constantly pushing the envelope. We agree 12 meets, 2 rain-out days, and then all of a sudden there's a rain-out day for every meet that's there. Right. What that means is, like, when I'm having a sort of a family occasion, I'll go and check on my fridge where I've got when the meets are. Oh no, we can't have it then, it's race night, so let's have it then. But now you can't even guarantee that, because if it's raining that night, then they have it on the night that you've planned you know, an occasion. So I just feel like if we let them go, it's going to be somebody having to watch the whole time. And I think that the people sitting here are the ones that should be watching, not us. You know, we've got Old Mill Road, which is now a bit of a racetrack, and then we've got the one down the back. And now we're not allowed to have parking on our street because of the bike lane. We are just being squeezed. And yet it's supposed to be, those little cottages, those bungalows are historic, you know, and we just feel like they're treated with utter contempt.
Councillor Bartley.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Thank you for your presentation. My family live on Kiwi Road. They've been living there since, I think, the 50s, 60s. Whenever family come from Samoa, we stay there, and then we branch out to the rest of Auckland. They don't have a problem with the speedway. So, because, you know, so their thoughts are, well, you move into the area and you know there's a speedway there. So what's your response to people who say that to you? Well, you knew there was a speedway there when you moved in. Yeah.
Well, you know, anyone's welcome to like it. I would ask if your parents would miss it so much that they'd leave Kiwi Road if it was gone, rather than you know, enjoying it while it's there. I knew Speedway was there, but I presumed that it would be complying with the law, the way I'm required to comply with the law. I had a party for my daughter's 21st birthday, and noise control came round and closed it down, very rightly so, because we were making a horrible noise. So I'm not immune to making too much noise, but if Speedway makes a horrible noise, nobody closes them down. So that's an essential difference that I find untenable, not the fact that occasionally people make noise.
Well, I would just like to quote from Brian Rudman from the Herald, because I think that, you know, we can answer that, and that's what I say to people. Forget the blather about 75 years of history. If we got stuck in that rut, they'd still be burning rubbish down at Victoria Park. You know, I mean, why not leave the petrol tanks down on the waterfront? Because they've always been there. Or the abattoir, and we'd be still drinking the water out of Western Springs. I don't think that cuts it. Communities change, you know, and what's acceptable. We're getting very, very busy in the city, and I feel that, you know, we put up with stuff because we live in the city, but a racetrack in the central city?
And don't forget, there are 10,000 houses going into the old Unitec site, so the pressure on the neighbourhood is going to increase in a huge way. There's going to be a vast number of more residential people living in the area, so it's not the same suburb as it has been.
No.
Right. Very good. Okay. Well, I'll move the vote of thanks, and we have a seconder from Councillor Hills. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you, Nairi, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just a question for you. I'm always happy to hear any different perspective on any given issue. There's no item on Speedway to do with our agenda. I'm assuming, therefore, people with other perspectives, of which I know there's many, will also now be accorded the same courtesy that our guests were today in forthcoming meetings.
Oh, if it's relevant, yeah. If it's relevant to
Well,
something that's active at the moment.
Yeah, okay, so we'll pass that around.
Right, okay.
So just on that, Chair, you're only acting consistent with the standing orders, are you not?
Yep, yeah.
So,
I've got a few other
All right, we're going to now move to local board input, and we have Brent and the team from